For most missed questions, same one like you had yesterday, but different pictures. Apparently, I made the same question over, and I remember having it because it just seemed like such a good idea to do this. But anyways, you're looking for where they're crossing the y-axis, and like this one is crossing at the bottom of its wave, so I know that this one is an inverse cos or a negative cosgraph. I'm sorry. The one that crosses at the top of this wave right here, that one's the positive cosgraph. I'm looking at the y-intercepts. This one's crossing in the middle going up, but this one's crossing in the middle of this wave going down. So this one is negative sign and this one is positive sign. The one going up is positive sign. When you're riding a Ferris wheel, you would generally get on at the bottom of the Ferris wheel. So right away, that should tell you where this is going. You would need a negative cosine function. One of the popular missed ones is just simply picking the one that's a negative cos function because that's how Ferris wheel is going to operate. The radius, I'll draw a little sample of this. The radius is the same as the amplitude. So anytime you're asked for something like diameter, you're going to use the amplitude for that. Hopefully I said negative cos, but I was focused on talking, I guess, and put the positive cos answer. Next, the following for the function. So, it's always A, F, and M are your pieces in the function. If you did your little Delta Math Unit 8B, you're familiar with this. Now remember, amplitude cannot be negative, so the amplitude is 3. That's not an error on my part. More on that on one of the other questions. The midline is y equals 8. If there ain't no number there, so that number is 1. And then finally, period is not pictured. Period is always 2 pi divided by the frequency. And the frequency, remember, is just 1, so it's 2 pi divided by 1, which is just 2 pi. Any situations where you struggle with period or frequency, period equals 2 pi divided by frequency will save you. Anyways, in another question, we're talking about a trig graph, in this case a sine curve, where the amplitude is 30. I'm going to draw a bigger version of this because I want it to look good. Or not necessarily look good, but I want it to be clear. So if the amplitude is 30, remember what that means. That's from the midline to the top or the midline to the bottom. They're both 30 because the amplitude is 30. They tell us that the max is 100. And thinking about that, if I'm going down 30 from there, I know the midline is 70, but that ain't the question. From 70, if I go down another 30, that takes me to 40. And we are indeed asked for the minimum. So 40 is definitely the answer that you're going to be looking for here. I think it's because that's not a multiple choice question. You actually got to come up with the number. Then that makes it a little bit more often missed. Not that it was complicated. So again, the height of a Ferris wheel rider is modeled here. You know it had to be a negative cos graph because it needs to start at the bottom. The diameter, again, amplitude is like a radius. If I draw you a little sketch of this, the amplitude is 200. It's always A, F, and M. Why is this a trig graph? Because you start at the bottom, you ride to the top, you go back down to the bottom, and you go back to the top. Trig graphs are perfect for modeling the height of a Ferris wheel rider. Again, the amplitude is 200, so that right there is 200, which means to the bottom it's 200. The top, well, the midline is 220, seen here. That must mean the top from 220 going up 200, the top must be 420, and going down 200, the bottom would just be at 20. So again, the diameter would be 2 amplitudes, 200 and 200. You know diameter is the whole way across the circle. So 400 there. The max is 420. Probably could have added in the min and even the midline. But just 2 questions there. Next up, the only thing that I didn't officially teach you to solve, but more so to approximate, the y-coordinate of m is negative root 3 over 2. If you know that from the unit circle, you're in good shape. But What's the measure of theta, meaning the angle, to the nearest thousandth of a radian? You know a whole circle is 6.28. You know a half circle is 3.14. We're going a little bit more than a half a circle. I'm not quite going to 3/4 of a circle, which would be 4.7. Remember, a circle is 2 pi, or 6.28. 3/4 of that would be 4.71. So again, if I go all the way to the bottom, I'm at 4.7. I'm not quite going all the way to 4.7. I'm looking for something a little less than 4.7. The only one it could be 4.2. Probably the better question here, clearer question as well. A whole circle again is 2 pi, aka 6.28. A half circle is 3.14. So theta pictured, the angle pictured, it's a little bit less than 3.14. It didn't go all the way to half circle. The only thing it could be is 2.8. I think that one was a lot clearer. What's the value of sine 30? Remember, I will give you a copy of the unit circle on its test, just like I did here. It's a clearer copy, by the way. But 30, I'm looking for sine. Remember, sine is the y value. So we want the 1/2 there. Cos is the x value. Sine is the y value at 30. Remember, again, I'm just overemphasizing at this point. If you're modeling a Ferris wheel rider, you definitely want one with a negative cos graph. These two functions were the same function, other than the fact one of them was negative cos, one of them was positive cos. Can amplitude be negative? Again, no. Oh, that's one of the popular mistakes kids will be putting the negative. I think it was because of this. The amplitude is not -4. It can't be negative. But it is indeed, you're thinking right, it's always the A, the F, and plus or minus the M out here. The amplitude is 4, not -4. The frequency, that number right there that you don't see, again, that's a 1. The number back here you don't see is a 0. It's plus or minus 0 at the end. And remember, period is 2 pi divided by frequency. Which again, is just 2 pi divided by 1. Nice job if you got through that, because I've told y'all many times, smart kids will miss 1s and 0s at times. They just get a little tricky. Another one of these drawings just for good measure. I'll make a little sketch. The amplitude is 50. Boom, put a 50. I'm going to go ahead and draw a little midline sketch. The maximum is 120. So if I go down 50, that puts me at a midline of 70. And if I go down another 50, because the two amplitudes got to be the same, that puts me at a low point, a minimum of 20. And that's that for the most missed questions in this unit.